Religion.
Yeah.
Politics.
I'm pretty sure that I might be crazy.
The Bible.
Can you say that on the radio?
I'm not sure, but you just did.
Brian's dating life.
Only if there's absolutely nothing to talk about.
Aaron's sanity.
Trust me, there's not a whole lot going on there.
Catch the breakdown at breakdradio.com. Welcome to the breakdown, everybody. This is Aaron Barker, and I am coming at you live from an undisclosed location here, recording the breakdown, the show that asks the questions that get you kicked out of Bible study and sent to therapy. That is the show you're on right now. That is the show you're listening to. You can go to YouTube and watch us live there. Breakdown, The Breakdown. Just search The Breakdown with Aaron Barker, and you'll be able to find that and watch the video. We archive the videos there as well, and you can chat with us while the show is going on. That is constantly watched by
Brian, the producer.
That's right, Brian. You scared me there for a second, like you didn't know I was talking.
I
to
had
you.
I had my Jack Sparrow moment. My hands were going like this, and I couldn't get the buttons. I was hitting the wrong mic buttons. Yeah. So, hello.
All right.
Hello.
I'm honestly I'm in a position right now where I'm very focused on the show here. I don't want to seem rude or anything like that, but I do want to say here that on the way to the studio tonight, I attempted to call a liberal talk radio program. And on this liberal talk radio program, my point that I was going to try to make was unfortunately not made because I waited for a half an hour to be on this show and was unable to be on the show. A half an hour. I told him what my comment was going to be, which is typical. It's a call screening situation. But I was not able to be on the show, which was unfortunate because I was making notes while I'm listening to this show and listening to the inequities and the conversations that they were having. And I'm in a position right now where we are about to talk about the Charlottesville, Virginia mishap that happened this week and the terrible tragedy that occurred here this weekend. And this is going to be something that's sensitive, but we've got to talk about it because there are things which must be done. And I'm going to ask you to be sensitive and pray with us as we talk about this as well. Even if you're listening to this in a delay or you're watching a recording of this video, I want you to help us by praying so that we remain sensitive to situations that happen. Those of you who don't know what happened, and you've decided to come out from underneath your rock to listen to the breakdown, I would like to go over very quickly what the situation was that happened this past weekend. A group of protesters. They were a mixture of white supremacists as well as folks that were just intermingled within the group. Although I don't know how you can hang out with this type of group for very long and not be sickened. But they were a group of white supremacists, white nationalists, who gathered in Charlottesville, right? Virginia. And they wanted to protest the potential removal of the General Robert E. Lee statue, who was a Confederate general. They wanted to protest the removal of this statue and also protest the removal of the Confederate flag. They wanted to protest this because they thought it was an attack against the white nation, and they thought it was an attack against our heritage in the United States of America. On the other side of this, Black Lives Matter, as well as Antifa, which is an anti-fascist group known in the past for their violence against people, violence against innocent people, violence against even liberals. All right?
Basically, anybody who talks against them.
Anybody that gets in their way.
Pretty much.
There are videos online of them attacking liberal reporters, women, men attacking women, etc. So this group shows up as well. Now, it quickly devolved, as you can imagine. You've got racism against blacks. You've got racism against whites. You've got evil and sin existing in one place from two groups vehemently opposed to each other. Obviously, this is going to devolve very, very quickly. And that it did. That it did. It devolved to the point where a young woman, unfortunately, there was a guy there who identified with the neo-Nazi movement, and Hitler thought he evidently looked up to him. He drove a car into a crowd of protesters. A young woman, age 32, was killed. Now, it doesn't matter what side this young lady was on. It doesn't matter if she was there for the white nationalists. It doesn't matter if she was there against them. What matters is that a young woman, age 32, has lost her life senselessly. Senselessly. I think what angered me the most throughout this entire weekend was the same thing that angers me whenever there's a national tragedy. And what we could do, rather than just say this event or that, we just, any national tragedy. We have those national tragedies that the Republicans, like, violence, gun shooting, violence. Automatically, the Republicans are attacked, and the liberals try to use that as a way to bring on more gun control, more strict gun laws. Whenever there's a situation where Black Lives Matter attacks, then that's the right's attempt to jump on the left and talk about the thug mentality and the street mentality and how we need to clean up our streets and have more strict laws, etc. Every one of these opportunities or every one of these situations are viewed as opportunities and not viewed as something where a person was injured or where a person lost their life. The entire weekend, both sides of the aisle were freaking out because they wanted so earnestly for that driver who ran into that crowd to either be part of Antifa or part of the Black Lives Matter or a Nazi. It's almost as if we were just waiting to prove that this guy who killed a young woman was on the opposite side of us, because then we can go after the people that piss us off the most. We're going to go after the liberals now because he was a BLM member or he was part of Antifa. And then the left is the exact same way. Now it's a neo-Nazi. And it's devolved to the point where the young woman who lost her life, it seems like there has been no focus, no sympathy, no compassion. And what angers me even more is to see so-called ministers in the public's eye defending their political party, defending their president, and spending less time defending the woman who was killed. Where's our compassion? For shame on the American evangelical white church. For shame on the Republicans. For shame. It's embarrassing. But not only is it embarrassing, but it is a showing of the lack of moral clarity which exists on either side of the party, on either side of the aisle. I'm tired of hearing about a moral majority. I'm tired of hearing about how the Republicans are more moral because we oppose abortion. I'm tired of hearing about how we're so awesome and so much more morally superior over liberals and leftists and Antifa and the Black Lives Matter, when the time for us to show actual true Christian compassion is shadowed by our attempt to prove a political point. It is to me a sickening place to which we have come as a nation, where our desire to prove the other side is wrong is more important than rushing to the side of a mother who lost her daughter, a father who lost his daughter,
maybe a family who lost their mother.
It is shocking to me. And I shouldn't, I mean, honestly, I understand original sin. I'm a Calvinist. I get it. I get total depravity. I get original sin. And the majority of situations that happen, I'm like, well, what would you expect? I wouldn't expect that person to act like a Christian. They're unregenerate. So rarely do I get shocked at a situation like this. But on the surface, I was I was shocked.
You know, Aaron, one of the things that I've come to an epiphany on, and maybe it's as I get older and I start to look at things a little bit more in the scope of time. You know, I think that I've lived a pretty long time. I mean, I'm 42 years old, and I have unique memories that belong to me. I have experiences that belong to me. I have, family vacations and Christmas parties and birthday parties and all of those things that I remember. And I can remember the times with my family and the times with my grandparents and the times with my aunts and uncles and times at school. You know, that whole part of my life is just, it brings up a person. And it seems like it's just such a senseless act of violence, whether it be this incident in Charlottesville or whether it be, people on the street, being gunned down for whatever reason. We have lost all respect for life in general. The idea that an individual has stopped breathing, an individual, all of their history, all of their experiences, all of their personality, all their contributions to the world have stopped. And they can never be, they've stepped out into eternity. You don't know anything about this person. You don't know about their soul, whether they were saved or whether they weren't saved. But all of that comes to a stop because somebody hit the gas on a vehicle outside of a protest. It's just it's senseless when you sum up a person's entire existence and the exiting of that person's life on something as silly as a protest because I'm offended or because I don't like the way that you offend me or your position or, like you said, the political parties. You lose so much depth when you stop and think about that person as an individual and all of their life experiences and all of their families and all of their connections and all of the way that they contributed to the people in their lives. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's heartbreaking.
The life becomes just a martyr for their cause rather than a human being whose life was extinguished.
Or a number on a screen. I mean, think about I heard a commercial the other day on the radio about the 5 police officers in Dallas that were shot last year. How many can remember those police officers' names? How many people remember that 5 police officers were shot protecting someone's First Amendment right to protest?
Yep.
And we're talking even just a year later. We talk about all of these different things that have erupted in our country in the last 10 or 15 years. It's been longer than that, but they seem like they're becoming more prevalent for less important things. Things that don't really matter in the scope of eternity.
Yes, and one of the things that I think is goes beyond the pale on this is that the entire weekend, and even it's Tuesday, it's not too far away from the weekend, but not too far removed. But the entire time, this has been the liberals and have been trying to pin this around the neck of Donald Trump.
Yes.
This is your president. This is the nation he's caused. And I'm by no means going to defend Trump because I'm going to talk about some of his inequities in his response and even in the press conference he gave today. But it's as if this is all one man's fault, that he is causing all of these issues. The issue is not caused by one specific person. What we saw in Charlottesville, what we saw in Missouri, what we saw in Texas, what we've seen in all of these protests, all of these riots, is the heart of man being completely exposed. We are now exposed totally. Humanity is showing its sinful self. Humanity is showing that a leopard cannot change his spots. An Ethiopian cannot change his skin. Sinners cannot change their nature to become nicer people. This is exposing the true problem and the true issue with our nation. And to be honest with you, I can jump right to the point today that really blew me away. We have a press conference today. There was a press conference given by Donald Trump today. And it was a cacophony because he was being, attacked by the press. He doesn't really have a good demeanor when he's dealing with people. There's only so much you can go by being plain spoken or speaking the truth or telling it like it is. You're a very thin line between crossing that and being flat out rude, undiplomatic, unkind, unprofessional, lacking in compassion, belligerent, prideful, arrogant. And I believe all of those things legitimately describe our president. And I will pray for him on those things. The thing that got me was at the end of this press conference as he was, I listened to it, I didn't watch it, but someone asked him, what do you think is going to fix the racial divide in this country? Now, Brian, I don't know if you've heard this or not.
I have not.
Okay. I want you to take three guesses as to what Donald Trump's response to that question of, what do you think will fix this racial divide in our country? What do you, three guesses?
Aaron, I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't even have a clue.
Well, that's not fun for the game.
Okay, the fun. So let's see. More jobs. Less taxes. I don't know. Wait. Give me something. Give me a realm to go into. I have no idea. I can't win the game if I don't know what the rules are.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you were really good on that because you said jobs.
Yeah.
And that was his reply. Our president's reply. The one that all of the Christians, not all the Christians, but the one that a lot of Christians jumped behind. The one who was ministered to by Paula the Great White. Actually, Paula the Great White Shark. The charlatan, fake preacher, Paula White. This guy that everybody said, oh, yeah, he's a Christian. When asked what fixes the racial divide in our country, what can fix this turmoil, Mr. President? Jobs. Jobs. Salary increases. Pay raises. Jobs and pay raises will fix the racial divide in our country. That was our great president's response to that question.
Probably not the smartest answer. And definitely not the right answer.
I don't even know. I mean, smart. I can't even say smart. It is. I don't even understand the logic behind that.
Well, now I do. I understand the logic because it's the same logic that President Obama used. He explained that a lot of the reason why ISIS was in such an uproar the way that they were is because of their economic situation, and they didn't have the opportunities that the West have.
And what did the Republicans
we
say to that?
Eviscerated him on it. I mean, same thing we should do with Mr. Trump. I mean, the idea behind it is it has nothing to do with the economics of our society. However, I do think that the case can be made for a change in our society's structure and to understand that a good reason for some of the issues that we've got going on is, our universities have become a breeding ground or a swamp where these ideas and the safe spaces and the snowflakes go to just get softer and more abundant. Aaron, for a long time, I believe that if people would come out of high school and go straight into work, come out of high school and get into a trade, come out of high school and actually start being a productive member of society, whether we go in the military or whatever, I think that changes. You don't have as much time to be angry about everything or be offended at everything all the time or have time to go protest, and both sides have made comments during all these protests that what happens to these people when we have jobs? I couldn't leave my job and go protest. I've got a company to run right now, or when I was working for the Internal Revenue Service, I would lose my job if I just didn't show up to work.
But you are saying all that is just drywalling over the issue.
I totally agree with you.
If you have a job, you're not going to have time to hate anybody.
No, I didn't say you couldn't, but you don't
That's
have time.
not true.
Hang on, but you don't have the time to do these day in and day out protests. You don't have time to go camp in a park for 6 months at a time. You don't have the ability to do that.
You would just be that on your job where you're getting paid minimum wage or higher.
Sure.
You would just be that. It wouldn't be any different. You would just be causing problems at a workplace.
Dynamic. It does change the dynamic.
But I don't know if it's even feasible to defend.
Oh no, I'm not. Okay.
That the answer to the racial divide, because that demeans the reason that black people are upset in this country.
Not at all. No. And I don't.
Oh yeah,
want
it is. I know you that you've been oppressed, and I know you've been treated like a lesser human being. But all you need's a good job. All you need's a pay raise.
Well, okay.
Like
first of all,
we're
I'm not saying
tossing
that.
a coin at them while they're playing their saxophone on the street or dancing a jig for us.
Hang on.
But-
I'm not
but you-
saying that.
But I'm going at the heart of the issue. It just throws out, oh, well, you just need a job. Because if you have
For
a job,
someone-
you're not going to be able to protest the fact that somebody hates you because you're black.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to protest the fact that somebody hates you because your mom or dad is Asian. I mean, what does it matter? You've got a good job. What does it matter if anybody hates your guts because of the way you look? You got a good pay raise. I mean, but you're looking for the wrong purpose.
I understand.
You're looking for the wrong reason to make somebody see their value given to them.
Give me a second to respond.
It's hard to.
It's not hard to, because you are just going to the absurd. That's not what I'm saying, and I'm not defending anything that Mr. Trump said, but I am saying that in a society where everything is not handed to people, you have to actually go produce something. You have to actually go out and work for something. You actually have to be productive. In a society right now where more than 50% of our people are on handouts of some kind or another, whether they deserve them or not, when you've got a 50% or more people that don't have to be productive citizens, then what happens? They get upset, and I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter. I'm not talking about Antifa. I'm talking about everybody who gets upset because your hair color's the wrong way, or you've got dreadlocks and you're white. I mean, I've actually had people. This happened in Cincinnati here not too long ago. A white guy had dreads, and two black people jumped him because he was culturally inappropriate.
Yeah, but again,
My point being is, it does get back to the root of society.
but a job
Is not the
doesn't
answer.
establish purpose or value for a person.
It establishes purpose and value for a person without Christ.
But we're not looking to establish
agree.
purpose and value for
I
someone
agree,
without Christ.
but just as you said
if
a minute
someone
ago,
asked me, and I wonder here, because here is the response.
but would you not agree with what you just said a minute ago about your questioning about Trump's belief systems and whether or not he's truly saved and so forth and so on? Would you not expect a man who's not saved to answer in a fashion like he just answered?
I am simply holding a candle up to those folks who said, "Oh, he's a Christian. He's a Christian. Look at him. He's saved. Paula White said he was saved. He's good to go." And if, just like Peter said, always be ready
To give an account.
to give
Totally
an
agree.
answer for the hope that is within you.
Totally agree with you.
Now, I'm simply holding a candle to this and saying, of all the things that you could have said, of all the things that could have been done, in all situations, your answer to how do we fix the racial divide is jobs. So we didn't need Martin Luther King Jr., the Southern Baptist preacher from the South. We didn't need him to do all that he did. See, the blacks just needed good jobs. And the KKK members that had good jobs, the ones that burned crosses and blew up churches and murdered blacks and lynched them and beat children and killed them kids because they whistle at white women, the folks who do that, well, they had jobs.
Well, okay, and I think that you might be taking that particular statement to the extreme because you're using a current statement for a historic purpose, and that's not exactly fair.
Well, I believe it's completely fair
I
because
don't.
the racial divide that exists in our country always has the same root. So let's say, let ask you, listener.
So you think
and
the
ask
racial
you-
divide right now has the same root that it had back in the 50s and 60s?
Absolutely. And it wasn't because of jobs, and it wasn't because of economic disparity. It wasn't because of a lack of pay raise.
So what is your understanding of the reason why there's a racial discrepancy right now? Or
sin. That's the same reason
Fair enough.
that's existed since the dawn of sin in this world. That is the same reason, the same purpose, the same cause of all of this is sinfulness.
So let me ask you, what would have been the response had Mr. Trump stood up and grabbed the Bible and said,
well, if someone were to ask me, and I'm glad that you asked this, Brian, in the waning moments that we have on today's broadcast, if someone were to ask me, and think about your response to this, because it's going to come up around the water cooler.
"Oh, I
It's
know
gonna
it will.
come up
It already has."
on Facebook. It's going to come up when you're doing radio shows and podcasts, when you call in and you listen to people talk. It's going to come up. What is the answer to the racial divide in our country right now? Acts chapter 17, verse 26. And he, God, made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, even as some of our own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. Being then God's offspring, we ought not to think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the heart and imagination of man, which we are going to talk about on the next program. One of the other causes of this is the sin of idolatry. But if someone were to ask me, I would go to that verse and I would say the answer to the racial divide in our country right now is for each man and woman to realize that when you look at a person of a different ethnicity, a person of a different skin color, a person of a different economic level than you, that person was made in the image and likeness of God and are eternal bearers of his image from now until eternity passes, which is never. Each of us deserves a punishment because of our sin. Jobs don't give us value. Military service doesn't give us value. Political standing doesn't give us value. Clout doesn't give us value. What gives us value is that we are intrinsically each born with the stamp and the image of God on us. And we bear that image in ourselves. And if we realize through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ that each person has that same value, that each person is given that value by God at birth, then we begin to understand the purpose of human beings and why they were created. God created on the sixth day. He didn't create us before the cows. He didn't create us before the bats. He didn't create us before the whales. He created those things and then created us as the crowning achievement. He made us a little lower than the angels. Now, he doesn't have a romantic love relationship with us, but he loves us in that he has created us and purposed in us to be his bearers. When we realize that my sinfulness, my personal sinfulness, has been against God, and I have broken his holy law and his holy commandments, yet he still had grace and mercy upon me in sending his son Jesus to die on the cross for my sins and resurrect from the grave 3 days later so that I could have life and that I could live, then every person with whom I speak, every person with whom I come in contact has to know that Jesus died for sins. He died for sinners. He died for me, the chief of those sinners. He died for me so that I would not be in hell. And he died for you if you repent and put your faith and trust and hope in him. We don't see the color. We understand that there are differences in cultures, but we can't see other people as different or less valuable or less image bearers of God
Amen.
because of their skin color, or nationality, or ethnicity. They are created in the image of God, and we need to value them. And we need to have the same love and respect for them as was given to us and intrinsically placed in us when we were born. Remember that, and until next time, make Christ supremely valuable.
You think you're so